Andragogy, facilitating effective company training, appreciating the characteristics of the adult learner. Andragogy is defined as the art and science of teaching adults. Today I'd like to give you an overview of my background. I'm Catherine Frazier. I am the consultant with General Electric Plastics. It's a manufacturing leadership career center. The clients are adult learners, and today we'd like to learn what is andragogy, appreciating the adult learner, and experience working with adult learners. The history of my company, Catherine Frazier Enterprises, again a consulting company, was established in 1991 to support General Electric Plastics' largest manufacturing site. It's 5 businesses in Mount Vernon, Indiana. We called it the GE Leadership and Career Center, but we trained over 2,000 adults. I have never heard the word andragogy, so I think I have a little experience in the area, and now I can name it. The things that I would train would be leadership development, career management, coaching, assessment, and new program design and delivery for professionals and managers in the manufacturing arena. The vision was to build trust, inspire, and coach individuals and organizational greatness. Our mission was to facilitate adults, train and coach individuals, teams, and organizational excellence, increasing individual effectiveness also to inspire vision and business strategy for change, and mastering leadership and critical communication skills. The assessments that we used for our adult training was the ADDIE model, program design, facilitation, and coaching services. What is andragogy? Andragogy researchers make the following assumptions about the design of learning for adult learners. Adults need to know why they need to learn something. Adults need to learn experientially. Adults approach learning as problem solving. Adults learn best when the topic is of immediate value. In practical terms, andragogy means that instruction for adults needs to focus more on the process and less on the content being taught. Strategies such as case studies, role-playing, simulation, and self-evaluation are the most useful. I found in my own training programs that the less that they participated in simulations and case studies, the less they would get out of the training. There are 2 authors that I studied, Knowles and Vila. They helped adult educators on adult educational practices and basic adult learning principles. There was a theory and process of andragogy. Malcolm Knowles, who was recognized by a growing number of adults who were attracted to higher education. In other words, he noticed that there was a difference when he was working with adults versus high school students or even college students. Dr. Knowles introduced the theory of andragogy to American adult educators in 1968. He distinguished between teacher-directed activities considered appropriate for children and self-directed activities that are seen as appropriate for adults. Knowles' theory of an andragogical model includes, number 1, the adult learner is self-directed. She or he makes his or her own decisions and is responsible for his or her own actions. And number 2, the adult learner has had numerous experiences to base learning on. And number 3, the adult learner is ready to learn. Knowles' theory continued, the adult learner is oriented to learning. And number 5, the adult learner is motivated to learn. This motivation may stem from internal forces that cause the learner to gain self-confidence, recognition, improve self-esteem, and a better quality of life. Jane Vella, 1994, was an adult learning researcher, and she offered 12 principles to prepare yourself when working with adults so that you can deliver effective adult learning. Number 1, taking a needs assessment. Participation of the learners is in deciding what is to be learned. Learners like to be involved. They like two-way communication. Number 2, safety in the environment and the process involves trust. Adult learners will want to believe and trust the person that they're taking training from. Number 3, sound relationship between teacher, tutor, and learner for learning and development. This particular one is on respect, safety, allowing open communications, listening, and humility. Number 4, careful attention to sequence of content and reinforcement. This one, number 4, involves appropriate programming of knowledge, skills, and attitudes, moving from simple to complex tasks. Jane Villa continued, praxis involves action with reflection. That is, acquiring new knowledge, practicing new skills and attitudes, and then reflecting on what was accomplished. Number 6, respect for learners as subjects of their own learning. This means allowing adults the opportunity to make their own decisions. Number 7, cognitive, affective, and psychomotor aspects. The emphasis placed on these 3 aspects of learning breaks the learning task into more manageable units. She goes on with number 8, immediacy of the learning. Adult learners want to be able to use the newly acquired information. Number 9, clear roles and role development. That means recognition of the clear roles in the communication between learner and teacher or tutor, with attention being given to the impact of cultural orientation. Number 4 talks about teamwork. Team and group work provide both a process and a principle in real-life situations. 11, the engagement of the learners in what they are learning. This separates them from kids who are in high school or sometimes in early college. This requires a rather active rather than a passive role in the learning task. Number 12, what is the accountability of the learning? How do they know that they know? This is an outcome assessment of knowledge, skills, and attitude. There are 3 dimensions of influence in learning and development. You have the external environment. You have your sensors, your senses, and the internal environment. And in the internal environment, we're talking about the emotions that go along with learning, reasoning and intelligence, and learning and change, or applying the things that you've learned. There are 6 principal research questions asked. In the learning environment, where does learning take place? In a learning activity, what will the learners actually do? What are they doing? And that's important. We've learned that we want to engage adults in whatever they're learning. We'd like to connect with their senses. How will they receive this experience? Affect. Learning of the heart, consider the emotional engagement that they're feeling. Reasoning. What do learners need to know? What are they thinking? And then learning and change. Change. How can a learner be encouraged to change? 3 dimensions of influence in adult learning. It takes putting these 6 principles into your syllabus to get maximum results from the learner. There's a model called facilitator learning strategies. We know that when there is low involvement in the training, the adult learner, when it's external to the adult, will have more reactionary learning. For example, reading, that's a low involvement activity. A lecture is one-way discussion, talking at the adult. And even the experiential lecture, where you might get involved a little bit more by asking questions. But what we've just discussed is that the adult learner wants higher involvement to be able to make the changes that are needed in their life. An experiential facilitator, for example, proactive and engaged adult learner, but that becomes internal to the adult. So as a trainer or teacher or facilitator, using discussion would be a very important exercise to use. Get the adult learner talking to the other adult learners in the group. Participation training is another, it's an exercise where they participate in some aspect of design of training. A very high involvement activity is case study. I have found that more that you can get adult learners involved in discussing, solving, and concluding with a case study, they own actually the lessons then. Role-playing, while is not the most popular, is a very high engaging activity. People in the past, they don't like it because it exposes them. However, they find they learn the most by putting into a role play what it is they need to learn. Instrumentation, those are things like taking a personality test or learning your leadership style. It's something where the learner does it with their hands and then they look at the results and they come up with an analysis. Your structured experience is when the facilitator puts together an activity and it involves maybe a group of 10 and you have 4 people doing one thing in a role, another 4 would be doing another role, and then 2 would be observers. That's high engagement. And then totally group dynamics, being able to facilitate adults in a group setting. The reason for showing this to you is that it's up to the trainer to engage the adult learner maximum conditions of exercises that they can develop, and you'll get the best results out of your training and the adult learner will learn more. So where did this come from? Pfeiffer and Jones experiential learning cycle. Yes, it's a 5-stage process. You experience. When I mentioned that you put together an activity, these are the things that you'll think about. Person needs to experience, publish, process, generalize, and apply what they learned. Experiential learning occurs when the adult is fully engaged in the learning. The learner is encouraged to think for him or herself, not to repeat the thought patterns of the instructor or the teacher. Well, what is experiential learning? Usually it's facilitator-led, usually not teacher-led. The adult is traditionally responsible for his or her learning. Learning happens because of what the learner does. Again, let me go back to an activity that has been developed and the learner gets involved in the activity, and it is generally not teacher-directed or what you hear from a lecturer. The emphasis is on how, the knowledge or skill that is presented. And the facilitator is the vehicle for designing learning strategy. Here's a summary of experiential learning cycle. Would suggest that you create a positive environment, involve learners in diagnosing their learning readiness level, coach learners in developing personal goals, facilitate and empower learner ownership of the process, Choose those strategies that engage the adult learner, and diagnose learning success with selected objectives, and enjoy the journey. For those instructional designers, you're interested in the experiential learning cycle, here's the model. First, experiencing, you design a concrete activity and experience. Then you have the adult learners publish that by reflecting, sharing reactions and observations. The next step would be processing, discussing the patterns or the common themes of what they experienced. Then move to the area of generalizing, relating the experience they had up in the beginning to daily work situations. And then finally processing, discussing patterns and dynamics, any back home application. And now you have it. That's the experiential adult learning cycle.